The great
Boz
has spoken.
Good morning. Welcome to the land of Boz with Jeff Bosley.
Good morning, afternoon, evening, I don't know, whatever. It is Wednesday, October 3rd, and this is the land of Boz. A little glimpse into the Tourette's-like polypolar existence that is me. And I condense it into one podcast of chaos and enjoyment, entertainment, and motivation. So, happy hump day. Let's do it. So good morning, everyone. Hope everyone's having a good day. My day, as always, started out with time at the gym, and it's been a unique day. Today's one of the days I volunteered at a horse ranch, and I don't know, man. I don't know how you can't not like horses. I think you might not have a soul if you don't like horses. But I spent some time there, and it's always peaceful, and it only proves how, if you can find your therapeutic thing, like I'm not even there like for equine therapy. I'm there and I help take care of the horses, and we'll ride them and all that, and they are used for equine therapy and lessons. But if you can find your metaphorical therapy, or literal, I guess, it's amazing, because I had just prior to that left a horrendous debacle at the VA. Sadly, most of the stories you hear about the VA are true. It's a disaster. There are good people within it, but the system itself is drastically flawed. So I won't get too deep into it, but I am a very diligent and multi-tiered planner, and very meticulous, especially when there's a time constraint and there's a little bit of chaos or crisis involved. So I do my due diligence to make sure everything is smooth, or at least I've checked and rechecked and checked again. And only something as powerful as the VA can combat all the work I put into something, and they did not disappoint. The system is a disaster, and I was leaving the VA very, very frustrated, but I actually was half tempted to not go into the ranch today just because I was that frustrated, but I did. I went out there, and as soon as I got out to the country, smelled a little bit of manure and horse smell, I knew it was going to be a good morning, and that helped start my day off on a good note. And I just kind of, I guess I would say, find that for you guys is something I want to pass on to people, because I mean, anybody that knows me knows I'm not really a jaded guy, but I'm also not a walking ball of, let the universe decide my happy place optimism. So I need to do better at that, and I realized that today, where I can use that kind of stuff to try to set myself up for success. So find your thing, whatever it may be, and it might not be the same every day, but if you can find that, I definitely do believe, even though it frustrates me and I roll my eyes, I do believe that if you can incept yourself with some sort of positivity at the start of the day, it can create a good day. I mean, think about it. If you start your day off really shitty, it feels like the rest of your day's the same. Well, there's probably a reason, is you're in the headspace to not allow to allow crappy things to continue happening or affect you crappily. So inversely, the same should be able to be said, in that if you start yourself off on an optimistic day, on an optimistic note, it should give you an optimistic day. So I need to do better at that. One of the things I always do, I've mentioned it before, is on the way to the gym, or if I'm stuck in traffic, I really try to listen to like stand-up comedy albums on Spotify or elsewhere, just to help get my mind in the right place, or at least laugh. Because again, you laugh at something, it kind of helps. Excuse me. Good Lord, we're already off to a good start. Already yawning. I'm making myself tired. So do that. Find your optimism. Find your little happy space, and see what that does for you. Another thing I want to do to address, it's funny because somebody mentioned on a picture somewhere, I had these two little scars on my forehead. This is very disjointed, I know. These two little scars on my forehead. And this just goes to show how incepted I was as a child when it came to being influenced by TV or television or movies or the world of pretend. So I have these two scars on my forehead, pretty much dead center, side by side, about the size of a pencil eraser. And what they are is, I had a G.I. Joe growing up, and he had a scar on his face. And I was innocent and ignorant enough that when I asked my mom how he got those, I asked my mom, I stand corrected. Okay, so I had chickenpox. And I knew my G.I. Joe that I thought was cool had a scar on his face. And my mom said, don't pick the chicken pox because you'll get scars. I didn't know the reality of the scar matches the wound, if you will. So I assumed if I scratched off my chicken pox, I would have the cool scar like the G.I. Joe. So I consciously scratched off the 2 on my forehead, and then my mom caught me and said, "You're a moron." She actually didn't say that, but to whomever on that picture posted and commented on that, that's why I have scars right dead center on my forehead. I guess those are my beauty marks of childhood innocence. So don't pick scars, kids. Chickenpox is real, and don't pick off the scabs because you will get scars and you will not look cool like a G.I. Joe. And then lastly, somebody wanted me to, somebody addressed on another picture mentioning, actually, I was talking to my neighbor down the street, and we were talking about how like there's a big post about Mark Wahlberg and his workout routine and his daily routine, and it's a little nuts. And I wanted to touch on, over the years, many have asked me kind of like, oh my God, you start your day so early and all that. What do you do? And I figured, hey, this might be a time to, this is kind of my day in the life of segment before I get into the rest of the show. I figured I'd kind of walk you guys through my morning. A lot of people have always asked, and I figured I never gave a play-by-play without getting too long-winded or boring. Lately, I come hell or high water, my alarm is set. Oh, fail. I hope you guys didn't hear that. For those of you in the room, turn your phones off. That's just me, so I screwed that up. So I will silence my notifications. So I start my day off at 3 a.m., come hell or high water, unless I went to bed absurdly late. And the reason for that is consistency. Most sleep hygiene experts, sleep doctors, etc., talk about consistency is borders on more important than quantity of sleep. Obviously, there's a set quantity that's good for you to rest, but if you're sleeping in and up and down and all over the place, left and right, it's that inconsistency is equally as damaging, if not more damaging, for your sleep quality and your restfulness. So I pretty much go to bed about the same time every night, give or take an hour, sometimes 2, but come hell or high water, I start my day at 3 a.m., and that's also because I want to get to the gym before it's busy. Because that really sucks. So if I'm really exhausted, I'll wake up, go to the gym, come back, and go to bed for a bit. Ironically, as I'm yawning during this. So I'll wake up at 3. Probably have to do what people do, go to the bathroom. I get some coffee going. I use a French press, and so I start with some water boiling. Get some coffee going. I honestly wash my face. A lot of people find this silly, but whatever. I wash my face with cold water and Noxzema, because it seems to wake me up. It's a splash of cold water in my face, and Noxzema has some weird chemical minty smell that kind of just seems to wake me up and stimulate the senses. No science behind it. I have no hippie backup for why I like it or it works. It just does. The reason I picked Noxzema is because I used it in college, and it brings back a little nostalgia of neat little memories. So I'll wash my face, do that, and then head to the kitchen, get my French press, and have a cup of coffee, and that's normally when I'll check to make sure I didn't miss any like actual important emails or even on social media. Sometimes there's an important comment or something worth looking into as far as a comment or a post. So I'll do kind of a quick rundown while drinking my coffee and doing that. Once that coffee's done, I sit down, and one of the things I do daily is I meditate, and I do transcendental meditation. And for those of you who don't know what that is, to not get too deep into the weeds about it, it's not meditation where you think like these, oh, today's going to be a good day. Today's going to be a good day. It's not like you sit there and do that or think ohms. Transcendental meditation, the gentleman who is helping spearhead its kind of modern push is a gentleman named Bob Roth, I think is the name of his book, or the name of the author. I can't find the book. I have it out somewhere, but he explained transcendental meditation in the mind as, think about an ocean. There can be a crazy hurricane above, and then you go down below, deep, deep down below, and the water's still calm. Transcendental meditation helps you transcend that. So the mind can be going a million miles an hour, but there's a way to get down into that calm state. And transcendental meditation and its practices helps you achieve that. And it's a 20-minute session twice a day, and I do that. If you're curious, look into it. I learned it through the David Lynch Foundation. So once that's done, I get all dressed. I get Izzy. We go out for a walk. Where I just moved, there's a huge business park next door, and at 4 a.m. at that point, it's completely empty. So I leash her over across the street, and then we go. She plays out in the grass areas. She probably does her business. I put her business in a poop bag, and we come back. And then at that point, at that point, I pack up and then head to the gym. Hit the gym, come home, shower, and thus the chaos of the day begins. So that is my morning in a nutshell. People have asked. I hope that helps. And a couple things I do. The reason I do all that consistently is I preach this to a lot of people is most jobs and careers, you have control of your day before the day starts. Like if you can set up that pattern and that ritual, that sets your day up for success, because a lot of us don't have the luxury of being able to control our day to an extent. So I'm at the mercy of this city and auditions and jobs in Hollywood. So if I wait till the later in the day to work out, or if I wait to, have my personal meditation time, odds are it's going to get interrupted by some outside force. 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7 o'clock a.m., odds are nothing is going to interrupt that. So that's why I really preach that morning ritual, and it's really important to me, and it's got very little negotiation for me. It's got a high percentage of discipline with a little bit of percentage of obsession, but, they kind of go hand in hand. I always look at like a brain surgeon. People always, call me obsessed or OCD, but I look at people I respect and like to emulate, and I would rather... I think they are where they are because they're a little off like that. Like think of a brain surgeon. If anybody I want to be OCD, I want it to be some sort of neurosurgeon, because I want them to be kind of psychopathically obsessed with details. So that's how I start my day, and that's why I start my day the way I do. And it's really important to set yourself up for success. I'm not as good as I always joke about it, the hippie aspect of why I do it, as for, purifying my thoughts. My guest Alicia on Tuesday, she's really good about those thoughts creating a day for her, and I need to be better at that. So that's my day. We'll touch on a little bit more of the stuff I chimed in on. If you have any questions or anything, fans at jeffbosley.com. So, all right, we are going to move on to the next segment of the show. Here we go. So what do we have for this fine Wednesday? What has happened? How did we get where we got? So let's look at this day in history.
Extra, extra! Read all about it! Life story of Playboy Penny! Extra, extra!
So this day in history for October 3rd. Some juicy stuff. Remember back in 1995? I do. I was at a cabin in near West Yellowstone, Montana, going fly fishing, when I heard about the O.J. Simpson not guilty verdict. Today, October 3rd, 1995, the Football Hall of Fame running back O.J. Simpson is found not guilty for the murders of his ex-wife and her friend Ronald Goldman. It was the trial of the century. If you don't know what I'm talking about, go watch the docu-series on Netflix, which I believe was just called O.J. I can't remember. Go watch it. And moving on, 1955 marked the debut of this wonderful, wonderful show. All right, I give up at that point. They didn't have the actual one I needed. 1955, the Mickey Mouse Show debuts on ABC. Many a famous person came from this show, and many a deranged child was raised on this TV show. A lot of interesting people came from that show that aren't sometimes the pillars of normalcy. And moving on this day in 1920, the first game of the NFL. Boy, things have come a long way with the NFL. Won't even get into that. Moving on, what else happened on this day? I lost it. What was it? It had something to do with... Oh, God, it was so good. Wait one.
It's the whole music. Whole music.
Oh, here it is. Found it. On this day, a death, 2004, October 3rd. If we could all have a career such as her. Janet Leigh, passed away this day in 2004. She was the stabbing shower victim in the 1960 film Psycho, not the remake. And I'm kind of a movie connoisseur. No idea if she was in anything else or what it was. So she screamed in a shower and has been immortalized with that music and that scene. So here is a tip of the hat to Janet Leigh. And lastly, we examine a little bit of history of why Wednesday is called Hump Day. I was truly hoping for a really clever, cool Urban Dictionary reason beyond the obvious. But sadly, in my quote research, I didn't find anything cool other than it is what we think it is. It's the middle of the work week, used in the context of climbing the proverbial hill to get through a tough week. So Hump Day is not any more clever than what we've made it. I wanted a cool story for why today is called Hump Day, but there is no good reason, so thank you. We now come to the part of the show where I talk about things that I deem nerd, which really kind of is all-encompassing for me because that can be movies, books, podcasts, any sort of media, or any things I'm secretly passionate about. So let's talk nerd. Nerd! Today I want to talk about horror movies. Last night I watched a horror movie, or two horror movies for that matter, and I, for the life of me, just forgot what they were called. But horror movies are awesome. I think people should watch them more. If they're not your thing for religious beliefs or you just don't believe in them, that's cool too. But I think any horror movie that can truly make you uncomfortable is a success. And it doesn't necessarily have to be blood and guts. It just can be thriller and suspense and clever plot lines. Last night's on the menu, God, what was the name of them? They were on some random channel dedicated to horror movies called Shudder, Shudder. It's like a horror movie channel where they kind of accumulate all horror movies. Most of them were like kind of unknown ones, which kind of made it fun. So the video quality or the production value isn't through the roof. However, the first one I saw had kind of elements of almost like Saw and Hostel. So it was, anybody that knows, Hostel was a really graphic torture horror movie. They didn't pull many punches. And I believe it was directed by Eli Roth, and he nails horror movies. He just kills it. But the show last night was kind of a combo of Hostel and Saw. This place, the movie was about a guy that broke into a house that coincidentally was also being used as a torture house by the bad guy. And the one thing I like about horror movies of old, or the ones I think that do well, are the horror movies that don't reveal the bad guy. It's nice for the audience to share the same confusion as the main characters in the film. And this show did that. Like, you saw the bad guy, but it was in this weird creepy as hell mask. And they never took it off. Like, they did take it off, but they only showed the character reacting to it. So they did the old school thing. They didn't just blow their load and show the bad guy's face and then ruin it for all of us. And in the same spirit of Hostel, this movie did not, I'll put in the description notes what this movie was called, because for the life of me, I just can't remember what it was. This movie did not pull punches as far as gore. Everything from sewing people's mouths shut to fingernails popping off as they're being drug away. It was cringeworthy. Even just saying it and remembering some of these visuals kind of gives you that. There's good horror movies to me are like that initial first drop on a roller coaster. You actually have, your gut has this visceral sink feeling. And when I see fingernails crack off a finger in a movie, it gives me that feeling. I mean, I'm not morbid. I don't long for that sickness, but it means you're into the movie when it actually literally affects you physiologically. Like if you're hooked up to biofeedback, a good horror movie will show that you're into it. And so that movie was awesome. I'm not going to give away the plot or anything beyond that, but it was a clever story that had yet to be done. I don't know how people write original movies right now or original scripts because there's just so much out there. But I'm in awe of an original idea, so I'm really impressed with it. The show nailed it. It didn't reveal the bad guy. It had a clever plot line. I mean, again, like I can compare it to Hostel and Saw, but I think you do that with anything, is when you say it's a combination of this and this. When somebody designs a new car, I'm sure in the pitch room, they're like, well, it's a combination of a Rolls Royce and a Suburban. You know, they're always going to do that to help paint a picture as to what it is. So just because I said it was like Saw or Hostel, that's just to kind of give you acclimated to what the film is going to put you through. Good movie. Again, horrible movie review since I don't remember the name of it, but I just wanted to talk horror movies in general. And then the other horror movie I still need to finish. It was in the spirit of what's being called found footage horror movies. The OG found footage was Blair Witch Project, which for me, I liked. And it actually scared me because I think Blair Witch was dependent on who's watching it. If you have a messed up horror movie mind, you created the stuff that Blair Witch didn't show you, which is it's to me, it's brilliance. If you're of that mindset, you'll create creepy stuff on your own. If you have a boring and a horror boring innocent mind, like my mother when she saw Blair Witch, she was like, "What? I don't get it," because she doesn't have a messed up mind to create this horrible backstory of things that are going on that the movie wouldn't show you. So I filled in a lot of the gaps. This movie last night, it was called Stand By.
It's the whole music. Whole music.
Okay, it was called Grave Encounters. It was a movie made in 2011. Like I said, it was in the spirit of found footage horror movie. So it really, that gimmick with found footage is that they somehow work into the plot that somebody has to be carrying. Oh, God, only two mugs of coffee. How can I be yawning? But they use the plot device of somebody having to hold a camera, whether it's a camera crew or a documentary student, to make the viewer, us, get constant first-person point of views in the film, so you feel like you're in it. Very voyeuristic. And this follows a found footage concept, and the plot is about, I just got the plot wrong, or the name of it. That's not it either. Grave Encounters. I watched 3 horror movies yesterday. So this one I'm talking about, don't know what it's called either. Boy, this is a horrible movie review, but it's more the concept of horror movies I'm discussing. This does the found footage thing really well, and it sucks you in. And the cool thing about this found footage ones that work is that if they do it right, they know that we know that we're looking for stuff in the background. So always trying to find a clever way to do that. You know, something moving in the background that the main characters don't see. That always gets us. And this movie did just that. And the one movie I got right that I actually remember the name of, it's one called Grave Encounters. It is another found footage concept. And it's actually it almost makes fun of itself because it talks about, the premise is that there's one of those haunted reality TV shows that goes to haunted houses and investigates them. So the movie we're watching is a crew doing that, and they actually kind of break the fourth wall in that they show us, the audience, what happens when they call cut on these reality TV shows. But ironically, in the movie, they actually end up at a real place that's haunted and full of horrors. And again, it was a clever twist because the found footage movies aren't ever going to be, you can't reinvent that. But the plot you plug in within those found footage movies, that's what can kind of make or break you. So the 2 I was mentioning, they were clever takes on it. So they took good horror movie plots and they happened to film it using the found footage concept. So I think a lot of the failures, like Paranormal Activity rocked. It was one of the good ones where you had a very uncomfortable feeling of found footage material movies. And they got a plot with it. Sadly, the sequels, they just kind of filled in the blanks and did it again with the same plot. These other found footage ones, the ones that are still kicking ass and doing good, are the ones that take a good horror movie plot and go, okay, we're just going to film it like found footage. How can we do that? Whereas the ones that are just checking the boxes that go, we want to make a found footage movie. Let's plug a plot into it. That's a bunch of bullcrap. So that is my nerd rant on horror movies. So step into church with me, find some weights, treadmill, some sort of Olympic bar, do some crazy powerlifting, whatever it is. But let's talk some fitness.
Okay, I'm gonna get a Bowflex.
I'm gonna commit. I'm gonna get some dumbbells.
You know you can't eat dumbbells, right?
And since the show is just on its virgin week of airing and being broadcast, I figured I'd kind of start at the beginning and touch on fitness diets and trends I've done, so people kind of have an idea where I'm coming from, and so they can give me a little bit of credit and rely on me for some opinions. Again, I'm not a doctor. Consult your physician before starting any fitness program. Long story short, I started training in, I want to say, 9th grade. I started getting really tall, and I hated it. I hated feeling like Ichabod Crane. And so my father and mother, to their credit, they were extremely sweet, and they bought me like a knockoff Bowflex. They used their marketing shtick was that they used like these rubber band things, and it's funny because they've been at the end of the day, it was all about diet. But they bought me that, and that is when I started working out before my day started. And I've pretty much done it ever since, or preferred it ever since. I love starting my day with a workout. It's obviously you need to compensate by going to bed early. But that's where it all began. How was it, 9th grade? No, I think it was 7th grade. No, it was 7th grade. So, 7th grade. I'm not going to tell you what year that was. But I was in 7th grade and junior high, and that's when I would wake up. The little knockoff Bowflex was in my bedroom, so I'd wake up, and that's actually also when I started drinking coffee. It makes sense. And I'd head over to the Bowflex and do resistance training. I had no idea really what I was doing, but that's where it all began. I actually started probably more around 10th or 11th grade, so high school. That's where I started actually paying attention to what I ate and keeping some sort of food journal. And then did that through high school. And then in college, that's where I started going big time with having a scale. I would take the scale to the cafeteria and actually tracking my macros and all that. So I've been doing this for now, let me think. I started in 1993. It's 2018, so you do the math. But I've been somehow involved in fitness and nutrition since then. Not a single certification because I don't care about it. I long to have that as it's part of my life and a supplement to my, and it's been a synergist to my careers, present one included. And so I don't care to have all those things, but I have a lot of experience. I'll put it that way. So I thought I'd touch on the things I've done as far as diets and maybe trends. As far as weight training, I've never really succumbed to many styles or gimmicks per se. Foundationally, I've always done weight resistance, some sort of resistance training. I'm just going to refer to it from here on out as bodybuilding training, like doing bicep curls to get bigger biceps, etc. That's always been my foundation from day zero. And that's never really deviated. Even now, presently, I still incorporate that style of weight training into my current routine. And as the years went on, it was all more or less for looks, and cardio I did for aesthetic and fat loss. But all of it had an incidental bonus of making my body more healthy inside. I had my labs run throughout the years. I have many, 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 many years of labs showing my health status. Oh, excuse me. That's where the coffee comes in. I apologize. So as far as that resistance training wise, that's pretty much been a constant. When I joined the Army, I didn't have a gym membership for a very long time because it's a different kind of life. I pretty much trained to do my job well, and at the time that's when CrossFit was first hitting the scene. And whether you love it or hate it, or you think it's a cult, its workouts under proper guidance or with proper experience fulfilled my need as a Green Beret quite well. We have to have great endurance, we have to have great power, great quick power, bursts of power, great strength, you name it, we have to have it of some sort. Obviously, I'm not a big runner, but CrossFit helped me at least get through that. And I did those kind of circuit-esque, CrossFit-esque weight training most of my military career. It wasn't until the tail end where I actually got a gym membership again and started adding bodybuilding working out to my routines. And I'm going to refer to the CrossFit Jim Jones stuff as quote unquote functional fitness. And to me, that's just what it is. It was functional. So that was the only other stuff I did. And it's kind of come full circle, ironically. As of a couple months ago, I joined up with Jim Jones, the current owner, Lisa Beauchard, I'm probably saying the name wrong. Her and I and a couple of her workers, Johnny Primo, he's a former Green Beret, and a gentleman named Jake Hutchinson, all of Jim Jones in Salt Lake. Primo is a Green Beret, and Hutchinson was a former Marine. They reached out to me, and we've been working together, and I do Jim Jones workouts 4 days a week, and then bodybuilding workouts the other days of the week. So that's been my experience with training styles. And then as far as diet trends, I am the billboard for have done it, tried it, and hoped it would work. As for any gimmick and any legitimate thing out there I've tried. Back in the Mark McGuire days, I was praying endostendione or whatever it's called would be the thing to, change my life. And basically that's one of the messages I want to give everybody is if it's too good to be true, or if it makes things way easier, it's probably either steroids and extremely unhealthy and depending on what circle you travel in, cheating, or it's just a straight up gimmick. So at the end of the day, hard work is the only thing that is the tried and true. Hard work and then, nutrition and then the weight training. But as far as diets, currently everything that's going around, I have tried the keto diet. I could care less. It didn't work for me. The science behind it, there's obviously two giant schools of thought. Joe Rogan just had two scientists and fitness enthusiasts on his show debating keto. I'm of the school of thought, ironically, as the years have passed, because I went keto for a long time. I've been massively calorically deficient for way long. I mean, I'm 240 pounds. At my peak, I was 285 pounds. I was a big boy, muscle-wise. And I was very calorically deficient. I was having, at the most, maybe 2,100 calories. That's extremely stupid. And so I'm going to actually hit pause here, and there's going to be a weird little beat here because I want to make sure the audio is going okay. Okay, good. Better safe than sorry. And so, yeah, keto. Here's the thing: is everything I've ever done in retrospect, nothing made me go, "Oh my God, this is as seen on TV, too good to be true. My life has changed." Process, and that's the only things that have been that way. Nothing is that way, really. The things that are, "Oh my God, too good to be true," as seen on TV, are long, hard work, especially very focused and dedicated diet, and then the training you do is incidental. So nothing really was like life-changing. So whether I went keto and then I switched years later, nothing was drastic. The things that showed drastic, noticeable, no shit results were when I started weighing my food and sticking with what I was eating consistently. Consistent. And so for me, I know only from trial and error and trial and lack of amazing, miraculous results that at the end of the day, it's existing in a caloric deficit. If you're doing keto and in a caloric deficit, you're in a caloric deficit no more than if you're eating high carb and in a caloric deficit. I am now, as the years have gone on, I'm getting a little bit more mature and less wide-eyed about all the crap that's out there. I am now of the mind of calories. Your body doesn't know if this calorie came from carbs or fat or protein. So at the end of the day, caloric deficit wins all, and then tracking your macros, and then the ratio of your macros is whatever. So as far as diet trends I ever followed, the biggest trend I fell into for a while was the keto diet. Not life-changing, it is what it is, but I was in a caloric deficit, so it worked because and I believe it worked because I was in a caloric deficit, not because I was in ketosis. I bought the little keto strips and pissed on them, and I was pissing ketones, and it didn't change my world. And I say all this with a grain of salt, and I apologize if I offend anybody here, but all the keto believers, or some of the people are almost like a cult. So I'll say the keto cultists, every one of them that preaches it, and this is the same for like intermittent fasting, none of them are really that great in shape. A lot of them that are crazy cultists actually are an aesthetic I don't want. So I don't want to judge a book by its cover, but it's ironic when it comes to fitness, health, and nutrition. The cover is kind of what you do judge it by, So there are some people I know in the bodybuilding world that follow keto, and so I'd almost trust their take on keto, assuming they're natural and not taking any performance enhancing drugs. They may, it might work for them. Everybody's different genetically, so that's the one thing is there's no one program. But at the end of the day, most people I know that are preaching keto aren't something I strive to be. And that's everything I said about keto. Same with intermittent fasting. I just did it not as long or tried it only relatively recently. Same thing. It's a caloric deficit. I know I enjoy it only because it works with my schedule. And so if there is, for some freak reason, the fasting thing that does work, I just have this little baby hope that there is something. Otherwise, it's just a convenient thing as far as my eating schedule. Once my day starts, I'm nonstop. So it's kind of nice to just hammer it in more in this small window of time because I have a big appetite. So living in a caloric deficit and doing intermittent fasting kind of helps you feel full. And in lieu of that, I currently do kind of a hybrid nutritionally of what I learned with Pauline and Fighter Diet and intermittent fasting. And intermittent fasting, I literally only do because of scheduling. I don't believe in this crazy macrophage thing, I think of what it's called, and your cellular rebuild, all the crap that preaches intermittent fasting. I don't really care. The things I like about it is because I eat the same amount of foods in a smaller windows, I feel full, and then you throw in the crap ton of food you eat with Fighter Diet, man, that intermittent fasting, the window where you eat within that, it's a lot of food, and so you're very sustained. And again, I'm not out to be a bodybuilder, so the arguments for intermittent fasting and catabolism and break down a little muscle, it's not like all of a sudden my biceps got smaller. Any poor results I'm having is because I'm not adhering to my nutrition macro-wise and calorically. So if I have a body fat issue, it's because I'm poor at my caloric deficit. It's not because I'm not or am intermittent fasting. It's not because I am or am not following Fighter Diet principles. It's because of what I'm putting in my mouth. And if there's a failure, it's on that part because I've been poor and eating too much or even not enough. So there is the risk of that. Poor intake can also make your body shut down. So that's kind of where I've come from. In summary, a lot of bodybuilding-esque training, lots of circuit functional fitness training, currently bodybuilding training with Jim Jones training, and a current hybrid of intermittent fasting with Pauline Nordine's Fighter Diet. So I hope that gives you something. Again, we can chat on this more and ask more questions and establish a dialogue. Just email me, fans@jeffbosley.com, and we can continue to elaborate on the world of fitness. And many of you know me as the guy trying to make it out here in Hollywood. And so I'd be amiss if I didn't try to help you current actors or wannabe actors or just actors trying to get a little bit of insight from my experience. I'd be amiss if I didn't talk about how my day went and teach you some stuff I learned today and I applied today.
Well, I'm an actor, right? So I gotta keep my emotions right at the surface,
Everything I do in the acting section of my show is based on formal education and just, if you want to call it, street education in the world of Hollywood. And so a lot of it's built off my experience being theatrically trained on stage and the many years I've taken acting classes and various conservatories and workshops, and I spent a lot of time training. On the flip side, I spent a lot of time adapting and overcoming based on the rules of the system. Don't hate the player, hate the game, and sometimes that game Hollywood is pretty unforgiving, and so I kind of take what I know and then apply it as needed. One of those perfect examples is something that happened to me today. So when you're building a character, it should come from a place of purity. In film, theater, TV, you should be designing a character based on what feels right and what is organic. And I hate that word, but what is organic? However, I need to look at a note here. So I took today, actually. There's a phrase, I don't know who said it originally, but I've heard it multiple times. It's the foundation of what I believe is when you're acting and creating a character, is to live realistically in imagined circumstances. So that means you as the actor, you lose yourself and you are living realistically in imagined circumstances. In more normal shows or normal movies or whatever where it's based on a lot more reality, that's kind of quote unquote easier. But if you think about it, if you're playing like some character in some crazy science fiction movie where you as the actor would think to yourself, I would never do this, that's where you're wrong. You need to live realistically in those imagined circumstances. You need to have done your actor's homework. You need to have built that character so the reactions and the thought processes you have as the actor / character match the script you've been giving. The script is the foundation of what you've built. So that, with all that being said, that is the foundation of creating a character and acting and etc. However, then there's the business side of it. And this is something I do, and I don't know if it's right or wrong or whatever, but it's something I do. So today's audition, it was a big role. The character he ran the prison from the inside. He was like the number 2 man to the main bad guy that runs the prison. And then auditions are a weird little beast because you're only given so much. So you got to create a character from a lot more out of the blue. But the character description mentioned that he's unhinged, very maniacal, he's a cocaine addict, and he's very up and down and unpredictable and violent. So with that, I had kind of a loose character created and a lot of decisions loosely based on the script and the stage directions and all that. So I kind of built something I had, but again, it was moldable and ready to kind of flex. One of those things I do and I flex when I get to an audition is when I'm there, I try to get there 30 to 20 minutes early. And not that this should drive your performance, but I also let it kind of be a factor in my performance. When I got there, I could hear the other actors going in there, and they all did the exact same thing. Now, don't do something different for the sake of being different. The casting directors, the producers, the filmmakers, they might want that same thing that everybody's done, but you might have a different look that matches it. So it's not necessarily don't do it for the sake of being different. However, what they were doing, I didn't think A, was interesting, and B, matched the character description. So based on what they were doing, it settled me in making a completely different choice. All their stuff was very, and I'm not judging, but all their stuff was very cliche stuff we've seen in any prison movie with a bad guy. Very cookie cutter bad guy drug roles. None of them adhered to the character description of being unhinged, violent, and unpredictable, and basically bipolar. And so I was like, you know what? I'm going to fulfill a couple of rules of auditioning that I've kind of made. Is you want to be remembered, not in a weird way. Like, don't go in there and make an ass of yourself or do something weird just for the sake of being weird. But if you're memorable because you're polite, or because you look like somebody you want to work with, or because of how you treat them, and or because of your performance, that's a way to be memorable. So a way I wanted to be memorable was my performance. I'm very polite and all that, but my performance that I had already kind of pre-tailored was quite a bit more maniacal than what everybody else had been doing. And so since everybody else had been doing the same thing, that made me go, you know what, screw it. I'm going to be remembered because they've been hearing the same thing all day long. And again, I justified it because not only was it memorable and it's something I felt right, it matched the character description, I think, better. Acting is a subjective art, so there's no right or wrong answer. So my performance was very up and down, very bipolar, very maniacal, kind of almost Joker-esque, kind of Heath Ledger Joker-esque. I don't emulate other performances, but that's probably the closest thing I can come to is his up and down, his very neutral delivery of some terrifying lines, and then his maniacal extreme of others. It was actually kind of a Heath Ledger, Jared Leto combo, to be honest with you. And I honestly think it worked. I may or may not get the role. There's a bajillion reasons why I could or could not get it, whatever. But that's something I want other new actors or actors to maybe consider, is it's go in there early and listen to other people's performances. If you've ever run an audition and you've heard 8 hours of the same thing, you might long for a different performance. Even if it's wrong, at least it's different. So even if my argument is it matched the character description, and I gave this guy at least some variety in a day that he's just seen the same thing over and over and over again for 8 hours. So I gave him something that I think matched the character description, and I think gave him something that at least gave him a little variety in his soul-sucking day. So actors consider that. Be different, but have a reason to be different. Give them something to stand out, especially, there's a lot of things people don't think about. If you're the 1 o'clock audition, they just had lunch, they've had a long day, they're tired, they're kind of in that post-Thanksgiving exhaustion, digesting their food. throw it in at him and give him something new. Wake him up a little bit. Again, don't do it for the sake of doing it, because that's not going to be genuine, and that's going to be very obvious how you're just doing it different for the sake of being different, and that's a bunch of crap. But if it's something you can do to wake them up, give them a little bit of like, hey, I remember that guy. And worst case scenario, they might go, that dude was wrong. But when he introduced himself, he was a very kind, polite, very professional, stern-looking dude, as Jeff Bosley. And the fact I could go to this maniacal place with this crazy high-pitched laugh, let them know, wow, this dude did something different we did not see coming. He will remember the guy, but he's not right for the role. That's the worst case scenario. And because at auditions, you don't get more than often than not a second chance at that audition. They're not, if they really want to see you, they might redirect you and say, okay, that was awesome, but do this. But that's not often. It's a pretty fast judgment process. So new actors, try that. Go in there, have a set idea, but get there early and see what everybody else is doing and see if your set idea can possibly adapt to something a little bit more maybe entertaining or diverse, just to give them a little bit of change and also stand out. All right. Hopefully this helps you book some jobs, but doesn't take away work from me. And this brings us to the last part of our show where I talk to a friend. Today's friend is a good buddy of mine named Jesse. Wow, this dude is wise and funny, satirical, completely educated about all things that are going on militarily, politically. Great father, great husband. Former military, enlisted infantryman, and then mechanized infantry officer, college educated. Dude is very diverse, very well spoken. We get into a pretty dang good discussion here, one that you probably didn't see coming. So please enjoy my conversation with Jesse.
What? Did we just become best friends? Yep.
All right, so today, like I said, I'm joined by my buddy Jesse. Are you in Idaho right now, I assume?
I am.
All the way.
I live up in the land of potatoes.
All the way home, all the way from my home state of Idaho. And for those of you who don't know, Idaho.
Here, dude. I move here, you move away. I'm kind of bitter at you right now.
Well, I do miss my license plate that says famous potatoes.
Correct. It's the best.
So, Jesse, I know today is like a big family day and down day, so thank you for doing this.
No, happy to help, homie.
What do you got for us, buddy? I'm all pins and needles.
A lot of bitterness toward China. That kind of like to get off my chest.
I'd love to hear it.
Well, good. I don't particularly have anything against the Chinese people, but I have a huge chip on my shoulder against the Chinese government because they're basically corrupt turds. and if there's one thing you can count on China for, it's doing things they say they're not going to do.
Well, let me kind of do a little brief back to the listeners for two tiers to this. Number one, if you're like me and you get all your news from pop-up ads on Facebook, odds are you're very misinformed like me. Jesse is not that guy. He probably sees that stuff and can easily call BS on it because he knows what's real and what's not. And Jesse is extremely savvy in the world of news and actually is maybe to a fault, passionately cares about what he sees going on in the world. So for those who don't know, and this is kind of my clever way to throw it on people listening as it's their fault, but I also don't know what's been going on with China lately that brings you to this frustration.
So,
or what isn't going on with China?
Exactly, yeah. You want those in alphabetical order or important? Just, I want to say 2 weeks ago, China ironed out the final wrinkles in their J-20 stealth fighter. They had an engine overheat problem, and no one was willing to tell China the technology to fix their stealth fighters because no one wants China to have stealth fighters.
Yeah, understandable.
Well, they did it in-house. They fixed their own problem, and now they have the J-20 stealth fighter, which is meant to compete with our F-22 and our F-35. Mm-hmm. They have it ready for mass production.
Uncomfortable.
Yeah. Yeah. So that combined with the fact that they're saying that America is going to put like 400 F-35s and F-22s in the Pacific Theater.
Ooh, okay.
We don't have that many.
Yeah, I was going to say, that sounds like a amazing militaristic bluff.
Yeah. And so they're saying they want parity with what we're going to have. They want to be at least equal, if not superior to us.
So you're saying China is bought the bluff, and as an ironic result, they're actually trying to match a number that is not real.
I don't think there was ever a plan to put anything like that out there. I think they're trying to achieve dominance using this as a ruse. I think they're saying like, oh, we heard somewhere that they want 400, so we want 400.
So they're just saying we see you and raise you.
Like that, dude.
Yeah. They're China's very known for like, oh, we see you and we raise you one.
Yes, before we even like cards on the table. Like we're playing Go Fish, dude. What are you talking about?
Yeah. China's at the poker table when somebody, before they lay down their hand, they just lay down their pistol on the table, like in mafia movies.
That's exactly it. But the other day they conducted, or I guess a few months back, they conducted sea trials of the new J-20, and there's just because there's different atmospherics, there's different conditions flying over water than there is flying over land.
Oh yeah, that makes sense. I never thought of that.
It performed brilliantly, and they flew right to the edge of Taiwanese airspace.
God, China just loves kind of showing everybody what they got and walking around and doing the helicopter with it. And
they do.
Just on the border.
They just put their own. They had one aircraft carrier in the South China Sea. It was based on an old Russian hull that they never completed. They just put another one to see that's their own design. They have 4 more on order.
Carriers.
They are very aggressively, very rapidly building their military force.
Yeah, I was going to say, what now, this will be ignorant, but I also want you to explain what, whether it's known or you're speculating just as you, what is the reasoning for this? I mean, they're basically, from the outside looking in, they're posturing. Why?
China is at war with us.
Well,
that's. Because in America we tend to think of war as military action, like
shooting each other. Yeah, we're shooting guns, and right. They kind of forget what happened with the Cold War.
Chinese philosophy is much different. They view war as kind of a gestalt. It is military, of course.
Yeah.
But it's also political. It's also economic. It's also
yeah. I mean, for me, Jesse knows intimately where I came from, and there was enough of an overlap. But I mean, it is unconventional warfare. Those who don't know, one of the best ways to win a war is the easiest, simplest, most minuscule way. Back in Vietnam, I want to say they were Green Beret teams at the time, or even like LRPs or not, but it wasn't unheard of for them to get. I think they used speakers, or they just made their force or their unit sound louder than it was, and they would win wars just by sheer mind trickery. And not without
the origins of PSYOP. That's where I came from.
Yeah, exactly. And that's where Jesse comes from, is PSYOPs. And for those who don't know, it's psychological operations. It's basically bluffing and winning a war. I joke about it in Hollywood. It's all it's everything you do is psychological operations, because America, or uneducated maybe Americans, assume a fight or a war is done with blood, bullets, and fists, and the 6.5-foot guy with tattoos and muscles can win a war just as easily with a clever inception of an idea and casually walk away without even breaking a sweat. And that's kind of what that's what China and all of its allies have been doing. I hate it. Correct me if I'm wrong. They're good at it is the problem. They're good at it is the problem.
They're very good at it. They're very, very astute.
Yeah, and it's I always liken it to, my metaphor has always been like IEDs. I still think, and I will drop an occasional swear in this show, this is one of them, it's chicken shit warfare, because it's not man-to-man. But objectively speaking, it's brilliant. It costs 10 cents. It demoralizes the enemy. It can take out proportionately an astronomical more of a force than it took to make the dang IED. And, and that's...
The Russians did it after the Afghans did it against the Russians.
Yeah, and that's why and that's why that country is just littered with
$1 million ruble, a Heinz B attack helicopter.
Yeah.
Okay, what we're gonna do is tie some dynamite to a kite and fly it up into the river.
Exactly. Yeah, it's chicken shit warfare, but if you think about it, it works, and it's. I don't want to use the word brilliant.
It's not stupid.
Yeah, exactly. They're not stupid, and everybody assumes the enemy, whether you want to say the enemy, quote unquote, is China or some Taliban guy on the side of a road with some concrete and fertilizer. They're not stupid.
Right.
They might not be American Western bright, but they're also not stupid. It doesn't. Cavemen have been fighting since caveman times, and you didn't have to be a Harvard graduate to fight.
The difference is Americans tend to equate education with intelligence.
That's the quote of the day. Quote of the day. Yeah.
These people are by no means stupid. They're very, very intelligent.
Yeah.
They're just not educated by a Western standard.
Yeah. What's China's end game?
But they are
Like,
very
what's their long game here? Like, what's their long con, in your opinion?
Their long con is dominance.
Just world dominance? Just that?
Honestly, gospel according to Jesse, yes. Because did you know they're setting up? The Chinese are also setting up a military base in Afghanistan.
I did see that, and that, again, it only goes back to, I think I saw it on CNN at the gym, where I also get the second half of my news outside of Facebook, sadly. It seems like they have like a couple 100-year running game. I mean, they have the patience. I mean, again, you go back to all the Eastern thought, like the Eastern work ethic, whether you're, I mean, just from my innocent experience when I was
There are Chinese companies with a 1,000-year business plan.
Oh, yeah. The instant gratification does not apply to that culture.
Nope.
Oh, my God, no.
They also have a military base in Africa.
Yeah, they know what they're doing. They're planting a lot of good seeds.
In Djibouti, they're positioning themselves to control the Suez Canal. They will have military control over what gets to Europe from Asia.
That's astonishing. Well, and if you think about it, I'm highly speculative. They're just sitting there quietly. I mean, not so quietly. They're still doing this posturing bullcrap, but they're still sitting there going, "We're gonna just chill here for a minute, get all of our chess pieces ready for when America pulls out." Because for America, 15 years.
Geopolitical chess.
Yeah, that's beautiful. I mean, for us to sit around in Iraq or the Middle East for 15 years, that's for Americans a long war. China's like, cool, we're ready to be there in 20, and we'll be there the next 80 or 100 or forever in their hope.
Correct, yeah.
So
Americans tend to think of things like, oh, well, what are we going to do if China calls in our debt? We'll be broke. No, dude, China's not going to do that right now.
Yeah.
Because they finance their entire economy on our debt. If our debt goes away, if our economy collapses, their economy collapses.
For sure. Yeah, I mean, anybody listening right now, look at their electronic, and I mean, this sounds extremely elitist, but look at any of your electronics. Odds are, rotated on the back, it will not say made in Wisconsin.
No, not likely.
So do you think, just like anything, I mean, war has been going on since the dawn of time.
I think they are positioning themselves because they're buying up a lot of American real estate. They're buying up a lot of American companies.
Yeah.
And what I see them doing with the Suez Canal, with the base in Afghanistan, with all these different interests around the world, I think they're looking for an alternate means of income. I think they're looking to make U.S. debt irrelevant. Like, we can take this hit from their debt and not worry about it.
Okay, yeah.
And once they can do that, they can crash our economy. They still have an economy, and they can move in on us.
Mother God,
economically viable to fight back.
They are thinking definitely the long game for sure.
Absolutely, yes.
Yeah, and that's the thing is, I mean, you always hear, and it's definitely in media and for sure as hell in movies, where they plant like cells. China doesn't do that. They plant like their big picture long game isn't like some kids they planted here in college to plant a bomb vest in some crowd 20 years later in college. The fact they look at war with not government, that's pretty obvious, but like they look at war with business. Like if you own, I mean, if you own one of the most major or have fingers in one of the most major businesses in America and pull out the stock, I mean, if you control the stock market, I mean, movies and books and fictional theories about if you could control the stock market just with one quick little crash. I mean, the Great Depression. That was a war.
Exactly.
That was a war lost
you
financial.
You don't have to own 100% of Google
Yeah.
to have an effect.
Yeah.
If you own 20% or 15% of every Fortune 500 company's stock, and you pull it all out, you're done.
And in tech, I mean, tech is synonymous with China, and this very conversation. It has 80-90% of its existence because of tech.
The phone I'm talking to you on was made not in Idaho.
Yeah, exactly. Wait, what?
Sorry, man. I hate to break it to you. I've been trying to buy American, but America doesn't make phones anymore.
That's the other thing is what? Okay, yeah. Let me be the Joe Blow ignorant here. What It's classic American. I'm the center of the universe. How does this affect me? Or is this just because Jesse knows military stuff and stays in touch? I'm obviously playing devil's advocate here. Like, I care because I think military people care because we can understand what's going down.
I don't think the average American, has anything to care about right now.
Because this would be their grandkids' problem. Just like, the environment or whatever. I mean, it's out of sight, out of mind.
We're raising our kids to make sure that, they still care about their 8th place trophy. China is...
That'll be another show. You and I will have to do a show on that.
China's raising their kids to say, like, this is what's going to happen when we own India.
Yeah.
Or when we own, the western half of the United States.
Yeah, it's astonishing. Yeah, they're I just brain farted on the terrorist camp, if you will. Their version of a terrorist camp isn't some grungy running through monkey bars with an AK on their back. Their terrorist camp is this crazy, intricate, long game of my grandkids will all profit from this and own the world.
Correct.
Yeah. What can... It sounds so interviewy, but like, what if people are like genuinely curious about this? What's, I guess, a trusted source, if you will, like to kind of just be like, holy shit, this stuff is actually happening in the world. I mean, are there like reliable books or reliable sites that are actually kind of trying to state, not conspiracy sites, but like, are there places that kind of keep people abreast of this crap that's going down, even if not just for?
The problem is if you want to stay, ahead in the media world, you can't publish conspiracy theory stuff.
Yeah.
And unfortunately,
doesn't sell.
This stuff, a lot of this stuff does sound like conspiracy theories. This sounds like straight Alex Jones level crap right here.
Yeah.
But the problem is, like, I do this for my show, and I go to like 10 or 15 sites, and I pull together the pieces to form the big picture. But
yeah.
I did spend 2 years in military intelligence when I farted out the left half of my brain.
Yeah. And it's, you came out somewhat still normal, so.
Mostly. I think it's because I got out early.
Yeah. Early. Good. Yeah. Ironic choice of words.
But I do this as research for my own business, and it takes a lot of effort to find this stuff.
Yeah.
And most people don't want to publish it because they don't want to be the one to cause a scare.
Yeah, for sure. Well, speaking of that, do you have I guess any more?
No,
that wraps up your China talk with Jesse.
I gotta go to church now, man.
Exactly.
I gotta go to church somehow.
Yeah, purify your brain. Well, you mentioned your own show and your own business, your own podcast. What do you got going? Let's cross.
We have, I have, along with a buddy of mine, the Joe and the Jarhead. We're on YouTube right now. We're just getting launched. Hoping to go to podcast here in a bit, but Patreon's being kind of weird. Anyway, we'll have it up in the next couple of weeks. But the Joe and the Jarhead, it's me and a Marine Corps buddy that I work with, and Army and Marine play together like fire and jet fuel. So
oh yeah.
We tend to have a lot of fun with it.
With a sledgehammer trying to put out the fire.
A lot of news stories that the big networks miss.
Oh, totally. I dig it. Yeah, and that's the thing is, I guess at the end of the day, when the average Joe could go to places like what is it, Joe and the Jarhead?
The Joe and the Jarhead.
I love it. People can go to these places because you're not regulated by basically a conglomerate that needs to make headlines. So I mean,
correct.
It's I guess that's where Americans need to be smart about picking your resources. Is what do they got to lose? Jesse doesn't.
Exactly.
I mean, obviously everybody wants to get stuff out there and a numbers game, so to speak. But if those numbers aren't putting food on your table, like whether you're on the CNN side or this Fox News side or everywhere in between, I mean, everybody's out to put food on their table with that stuff. So these kind of sites, God bless the internet, they allow, next thing you know, there'll be Jesse with like an aluminum foil hat on. So that's where I'll tell everybody to stop.
Exactly.
I'll be like, stop following Jesse. I take it back. Stop following Jesse. But until that day comes, check him out on YouTube. I seriously, we'll come back to it because Jesse not only is military and politically savvy, his perspective on life and parenting, and since I don't have kids, but we touched on it a little bit here with the getting a trophy for 8th place. Jesse and I, I'm sure, can rant on that for a good 15, 20 minutes. So
that would not be difficult.
Yeah, we'll definitely come back to that. So if there's anything else, if there's not, we'll call it a show. And
I like it.
Cool. Thanks, brother. I'll not hang up.
Happy to be here.
Yeah.
Thanks for having me.
Of course. Don't hang up on me. We'll talk to you next time. And everybody, that was Jesse Coyne. Thanks, buddy.
Hey, thank you, bro.
All right. And thus concludes Wednesday, October 3rd, show number 3. As I always say, but I sincerely always mean, thank you so much for your time and your support, spreading the word. I'm making this my job, and like I say, as such, you are my customers, and I value my existence is because of you. That's always been the same with film and TV for me, and it's now this way for this podcast. So this is your product. And with that being said, please feel free to chime in on the Patreon page on the show's feed itself, or you're welcome to just simply email me, fans@jeffbosley.com, and I will interact extremely frequently because this show is your show. I want to make I listen to the show when I'm editing it, but I don't put the podcast on when I'm driving to the gym or to an audition or work. So this is for you and your entertainment, so I strive to make it great for you. With that being said, patreon.com/Jeff Bosley. Please share it with your friends, and take care. Have a great day. Go forth, conquer, kick ass. Adios.